and they caught some of Deion's strays, right? Deion had a level of greatness that was untouchable, right? Deion could say, yeah, I'm not interviewing with these people because I'm not gonna be there in the draft. Deion could say, hey, I already ran 140. I ain't effing with no more of this testing because y'all already know I'm top 5 and it ain't tripping. Watch the film, know who I am.
A couple teams that I won't allow him to play for.
Whoa.
This is my profession. I know what's behind the curtain. We ain't got to get back there for me to understand what's not prominent for my son. I'm not doing it. Ain't
And
no
if he
in the world.
doesn't listen to you?
Who? No, you must mean owners, like not my son.
Have you told him privately who you would like for him to play for?
It's not like who I would like for him to play for. It's
Then I think Deion's approach to it made other people, Deion's fame, right? Deion's success, Deion's ability to one day be a head coach in the league. Also, Deion's ability and what he's done in navigating the present, right? When we talk about college of his children and now going into the pros, this was the first thing he couldn't control.
The Shedeur Sanders drafting controversy is back in the spotlight, and this time, Ryan Clark is adding more layers to the story. Clark dives deep into why and how Deion Sanders and his sons found themselves caught up in this situation. He starts by highlighting Deion Sanders' stature in the NFL, a legend with the credibility to make bold decisions. Clark suggests that Deion might have set his expectations for his sons a little too high, thinking they deserved top-tier attention, but the reality was a bit different. Clark then points out that Deion, with his influence, might have made a crucial mistake by trying to control which teams his sons would join, excluding others from the mix. This, according to Clark, was the exact moment the NFL powers were waiting for. They saw an opening, an opportunity to strike, and they took it, leading to the disrespect toward both Deion and his sons. Ryan Clark continued by addressing the unfair chatter surrounding Shedeur Sanders' evaluation. He emphasized that the criticism was largely based on perceptions of Shedeur's character and personality, with many believing he was simply too cocky. Clark argued that this was a huge misstep, as it's impossible to truly gauge someone's character from the outside looking in. The focus on his demeanor and off-field persona overshadowed his actual skills and potential as a quarterback. Unfortunately, this judgment played a major role in Shedeur's draft stock taking a significant hit, causing him to fall much further than he deserved. Clark went on to explain that all the focus was placed on things Shedeur Sanders couldn't control. He pointed out that the conversation around Shedeur's draft prospects wasn't based on the actual football aspects like his film or his potential. Yes, some might argue he didn't have the most reliable throw or the required movement in the pocket, but Clark made it clear that those were never the main points of discussion. Instead, the conversation was entirely centered on factors beyond Shedeur's control, things like his personality, his father's influence, and other external factors. This, Clark argued, was a massive oversight and detracted from a true evaluation of his abilities as a player. But why were they doing this to Deion Sanders and his sons? The answer lies in Deion Sanders' greatness. Clark explained that all the critics who didn't want Shedeur to be selected in the first round weren't focused on his actual gameplay, his throwing ability, or his movement in the pocket. No, the real reason was rooted in a desire to hurt Deion Sanders and his legacy. These people weren't attacking Shedeur for his football skills, they were trying to undermine Deion, a figure whose greatness and influence had already left a lasting impact on the game. They saw an opportunity to take a shot at Deion's name and what he had built, and unfortunately, Shedeur became collateral damage in that battle.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
no idea, man. You have no idea.
Deion even addressed those who claimed that Shedeur wasn't prepared for interviews, pushing back on the criticism. He pointed out that the people making those statements clearly didn't understand Shedeur's journey. Deion mentioned that his son had worked with 6 different coordinators throughout his career, each helping to level up his training as Shedeur moved through various stages of development. This constant change and adaptation in coaching wasn't something most quarterbacks had to experience, and it played a key role in Shedeur's growth. Deion emphasized that despite these challenges, Shedeur had shown tremendous resilience and preparation, both on and off the field. Looking at Shedeur Sanders' college career, it's hard to overlook his impressive numbers in leadership. While Jackson Dart and Cam Ward certainly showcased their talents, Sanders led one of the most high-profile programs and handled immense pressure with poise. He navigated tough matchups, often elevating his game when needed the most, and his statistics backed that up. So why the gap in perception? When we dive into the stats, it becomes clear that Sanders has areas where he stands out. First, his completion percentage. Sanders leads the pack with an impressive 74%. That's significantly higher than Jackson Dart, who sits at 69.3%, and Cam Ward, who trails even further at 67.2%. What does this mean? Sanders was more accurate and consistent with his throws, a crucial factor when evaluating a quarterback for the NFL. Next, let's talk about touchdowns. Sanders finished with 37, just 2 behind Cam Ward, who had 39. Dart, on the other hand, had 29. Despite not having the same raw yardage numbers as the other two, Sanders was still able to put points on the board more frequently. This shows that when it mattered most, he could find the end zone, which is exactly what you want from a quarterback. Finally, we can't overlook passer rating. Sanders posted an impressive 168.2, the highest of the three quarterbacks. Dart had a slightly higher rating of 180.6, but Sanders' number is still remarkable and speaks to his overall efficiency. It tells us that he wasn't just throwing the ball, he was doing so with precision and control. So, while some analysts have claimed Sanders was far behind Dart and Ward, these numbers tell a different story. Now, here's the real kicker. If the Giants had access to Jackson Dart's interview footage and even released it to the public, why hasn't Shedeur Sanders' video been made available? If everyone else's interviews were scrutinized and shown, it raises the question, why is Sanders' footage being kept under wraps? Could there be something in his interview that the Giants don't want the public to see? Or is it simply a matter of not wanting to further fuel the controversy? As these claims continued to surface, they quickly turned into nothing more than lame excuses. The so-called journalists began lashing out at the Sanders family, turning their focus to Deion as well, accusing him of being responsible for Shedeur's fall in the draft. What was conveniently ignored was the fact that the entire situation had been manipulated by NFL powers and teams. The narrative was being shaped behind the scenes, and Shedeur's draft stock had been undermined from the start. Colin Cowherd, as expected, joined the chorus, labeling Shedeur Sanders and his family as egoistic for being too selective about where they wanted Shedeur to go in the draft. What started as a simple speculation about his interview performance soon snowballed into a full-blown narrative, focused not on his football abilities, but on his supposed attitude.
But he is a 500 quarterback who couldn't get drafted in the first round. It's a little much. Everything is something, nothing is everything. Shedeur Sanders didn't get drafted.
But if Shedeur Sanders was really as bad as some of his critics made him out to be, why did figures like Colin Cowherd suddenly start blowing his trumpet after his OTA performances? Cowherd, who had been one of Shedeur's loudest critics just months ago, did a complete 180. After watching Shedeur's performance during the Browns' OTAs, Cowherd began calling him one of the best quarterbacks on the roster. In fact, he went as far as to say that Shedeur should be the first-team quarterback, ahead of veteran Joe Flacco and rookie Dillon Gabriel. Ryan Clark's perspective that Shedeur Sanders was unfairly targeted in the NFL draft highlights a deeper issue rooted in the animosity toward Deion Sanders. According to Clark, the criticism directed at Shedeur had less to do with his actual performance or potential as a quarterback and more to do with the desire to discredit Deion. As a figure who commands immense respect and generates strong reactions, Deion became the focal point of a narrative that sought to undermine his influence in the football world. Clark suggests that NFL powers seized the opportunity to take aim at Deion's legacy by damaging the reputation of his son. This narrative shifted the focus away from Shedeur's undeniable talent, instead dwelling on perceptions about his personality and family dynamics. The media, led by critics like Colin Cowherd, played a role in this by amplifying these attacks, turning Shedeur's draft prospects into a story about arrogance and entitlement. Ultimately, Shedeur's journey became a casualty of the larger battle against Deion's larger-than-life presence. As Clark points out, the real struggle was never about Shedeur's abilities, but about the reaction to Deion's greatness. What do you think about the way Shedeur Sanders was treated during the draft process? Was it fair to judge him based on his family ties rather than his skills on the field? Do you believe that Deion Sanders' legacy played a major role in the way Shedeur was evaluated? And why do you think some critics, like Colin Cowherd, shifted their stance so drastically after Shedeur's OTA performances? Do you think this shift in narrative is a reflection of his true potential, or simply a response to the media frenzy surrounding his name? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.